Hello, you're welcome to the only show that brings you happenings from the diplomatic community in Ghana and around the world. My name is Harriet Nartey, and the show is coming to you live from the studios of Pan-African Television at Abena, Accra, Ghana. We are also beaming in 46 African countries and in some parts of Europe with a global audience via social media. So you can join us on Facebook and YouTube and share your comments or thoughts on today's episode of the show with us. Now, today we are focusing on Ghana-Brazil relations. We have the representative of Ghana to the Republic of Brazil who will be joining us on the show to let us know what is happening between the two countries. Now, Brazil and Ghana established diplomatic relations in 1960. The Embassy of Ghana in Brasilia is the only mission in South America. Now, bilateral relations between the two received a new impetus from the 2000s with the intense exchange of visits by high authorities. Now, Ghana has been one of Brazil's closest partners in West Africa, which is reflected in the increase in political dialogue and bilateral trade and the strengthening of technical cooperation. The two countries share important shared values and objectives for their mutual interest. My guest is a poet, writer, feminist, lecturer, and a diplomat. She is the Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of Ghana to the Republic of Brazil, and also the daughter of the late Kofi Abrefa, the former Prime Minister of Ghana in the Second Republic. So, be my guest. We are in motion right after this break.
Lifestyle health, all those everyday issues that affect us in the big ways. Late Wednesdays are for book reviews. Thursdays are for the hard talk, those socio-economic, policy-oriented, political questions that demand for the tough questions to be asked. Our personality profiling Fridays, when we get to know the stories behind the winning personalities we love. Inspirational story from inspirational personalities. Hey, listen, you really cannot miss The Couch with me, Amma, but still the only TV show with a hat.
We are the only one doing. Euracare is the only
facility
one
here.
Facility doing the cardiac MRIs and spectroscopy like studies only in West Africa.
So we have basically all the medications we need for our patient, from cardiology, all the specialists, cardiology, gastroenterology, fertility. We have everything here. Radiology, we have all the medicines here. So that's why I said this way the magic.
Yes.
Euracare is more like a one-stop shop. So if you come in, for most hospitals, you know that if you see a patient and the patient needs maybe an MRI or a CT scan, they would have to send the patient outside and do it. Because usually when I go out, I see a lot of ambulances back from other hospitals, but we don't experience that. We are fortunate that we are able to get all our patients in-house, do all the investigations that we do, whether laboratory, radiological, whether it's an echo, we do everything. If you need to be sent to cath lab, we do everything here.
Trasaco Estates, home to Accra's most beautiful and luxurious homes, presents its newest addition, Trasacco Springs, a premium master planned community of service plots surrounded by an exhaustive list of amenities. The gated community of Tema to Accra Motorway presents you the finest opportunity to own a land that suits your preferred size, budget, and payment terms. Trasacco Springs is open to you for development. Our on-site sales executives are ready. Call on 055 659 2658.
Right, so welcome back. The show is Diplomatic Affairs, and like I said, welcome back. The show is Diplomatic Affairs, and we are streaming live on Pan-African Television. You can watch us on Facebook and YouTube. My guest is in and she's seated, and we are ready to have a very interesting conversation on today's show. I am super excited and I hope you are too. Now, my guest is... Hold on, I have a brief profile that I have put together. Her Excellency Abena Pokua Adompim Busia is Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of Ghana to the Federative Republic of Brazil, with concurrent accreditation to the republics of Argentina, Bolivia, Chile, Colombia, Ecuador, French Guyana, Guyana, Paraguay, Peru, Suriname, Uruguay, and Venezuela. This means that she's in charge of Brazil and 11 other countries in the South of America. Now, prior to her current position, Ambassador Abena Busia served 2 terms as chair of the Department of Women and Gender Studies and was a professor in the English and Comparative Literature departments at Rutgers, the State University of New Jersey. Ambassador Busia has distinguished herself as a specialist in the areas of gender, race, multiculturalism, and African diaspora studies, and was a professor in the English. Okay, so I've taken that one already. But this, I could go on and on and on and not finish. I managed to just, sample something just so our audience can appreciate today's conversation and get to know more about you. So it's very lengthy. I can't take all of it, so we can still save some good time and have a meaningful conversation. Your Excellency, it's good to have you on Diplomatic Affairs.
Thank you for the invitation. It's good to be here.
It's good to have you here as well. Now, I have been tailing you everywhere you go, and I'm super excited that today is the day that we get to talk about your job as Ghana's representative to Brazil and these other 10, 11 countries in the South of America. So we were at the audiobook launch of your late dad,
yes.
The former Prime Minister of Ghana, Kofi Abrefa, Professor Kofi Abrefa Busia. I would want us to touch a bit on that. Yes.
Well, I'm so happy you managed to make it. It was just after I got in. We were very excited to be able to launch that. This is really the work of my younger sister, Akuswa, who's an extraordinary editor. But it's based on the fact that we have an amazing gift. When Father was, 7, 8, this pair of Methodist missionaries, the Reverend William Whittle and his wife Alice, they were basically on their honeymoon, and they were sent to Wenchi, to the newly established Wenchi Methodist Church. And at the time, my father's uncle was the Omaihini, a very wise man who felt there's something here we should know, and sent his heir apparent, one of his heir apparents, my father, to the missionaries' home. And he worked with them, essentially starting off as their houseboy. But they became very close. The missionaries realized he was somebody special, I guess. And the Mrs. Whittle was his first teacher. And they taught him. And cut a long story short, it led to a 50-year, more than 50-year relationship. They were close until my father passed away. Well, it's half a century of letters. It's a half a century of letters, absolutely. Because Father stayed in touch with them all his life. They coached him. They were responsible for encouraging him to write the exams that got him into enhancement. They followed his career when he was at Wesley College. In fact, Daddy Whittle, as Father called him that and we got to call him that, Daddy Whittle actually officiated at both Papa's weddings and prayed over him when he passed away in England before we sent him home, and outlived Father by over a decade. So he kept Papa's, from the very first letter Father wrote to him, Papa was 10, was 1932, 1922, and the Omaihini died. And Father wrote, at that time I think they were already in Kumasi, and Father wrote to them saying, I am, my uncle, I'm writing to tell you my uncle has died, I'm now a poor boy, which is why my sister called the book From Poor Boy to Prime Minister, because that was what he said in his very first letter, which we have.
From
Poor boy
to Prime
And then he
Minister.
became a Prime Minister.
That's
Yes.
very fascinating.
Yes, yes.
What legacy has he left behind?
Well, personally, we think he's left behind the legacy of the belief in the democratic traditions that Ghana has today. It's a fight my father fought all his life, was this absolute faith in a democratic tradition. And, you know, a lot of people think of democratic traditions as something foreign. It isn't. The parliamentary system may be different, and the structures under which we live now, because we're all trying to create complex societies of different peoples. But if you think about our traditional structures, we were always a people who believed in negotiation, who believed in arbitration, who believed in you put your side, and we come to some consensus. Not that everybody should have the same opinion or that you have no right to hold a contrary opinion. No, our systems are based on everybody having a hearing and agreeing to the consensus opinion when you've finished. And really, the system of democracy is a kind of contemporary translation at the level of the nation state. Because, you know, I think we need to appreciate what modern nation states are doing. And that is trying to create unified societies out of complex, very, very different people of different languages, faiths, modes of operation, and find a way of us living together. And Father was really committed to that diversity in our unity, you know, unity in our diversity. and believed that the liberal democratic traditions that we have inherited was a good way of trying to do it. And I think in many respects his faith has been worn out. It's borne out. You know, nothing is easy, no country is easy. But I think it is something we should celebrate, that we are about to have, what is it, our 9th election in the 4th Republic. And all the elections have been contested, 2 gone all the way to the Supreme Court. People have disgruntled, people have quarreled, people continue to quarrel for the duration of the administration, but the soldiers have not come back.
The soldiers have
Not come back. And I think that's very important.
Right. So I took the time to read a lot about you, not a bit, a lot about you. And when we met prior to today, I jotted a few notes down. Okay. I appreciate the fact that you are an activist for gender and women issues. And so let's begin with women issues. Okay. Now, from where you sit, I can tell that the training inculcated in you has actually given you that core and that foundation and propelled you for leadership. Let's talk about achieving gender parity with a focus to women in foreign service.
I think achieving gender parity is difficult anywhere in any profession for a number of basically historical reasons. To achieve gender parity, a number of things are important. First of all, goodwill, but not only goodwill. Goodwill will not do it.
It's not enough.
It's not enough. You need allies, and you also need the honesty to recognize that there are structural inequities. And structural inequities, you know, when you try to tackle them, people very often get defensive. Oh, this is not my fault. No. But if you are an inheritor of a legacy of privilege, then first you need to admit it. And then you need to recognize how it's upheld. And then work in alliance with the people who can put something different in place. And it's always important to want to put something different in place. Because one of the things that always troubles people is you want to destroy this, then what else are you going to do? You know, it's like you're always against something. If you're going to be against something, what do you want to put in its place? And it's that last step that's always hardest, because it takes the most time, it takes the most energy, it takes the most consideration. But the first step is the allies, and the second step is for the allies to recognize that there are disparities that are historic and not the fault or blame of any particular woman. For example, why all over the world, to speak of my own profession, right? In the United States, even in the academy, women earn 70 cents for every dollar a man makes. So you could be a full professor, have achieved everything, written as many books and blah, blah, blah. If your colleague is earning $100,000 and he's male, you're earning 70. If he's earning 200,000, you're earning 140. You know, those kinds of things. It's not because he's wicked, and it's not because you're not as good. It's because we live in institutions where pay inequities were there from the start, because at first only men entered the profession, and you begin at lesser because what men do is valued more than what women do. So when you get increases, they get incrementally more, etc. I mean, we've all been there. You can be in a room full of people having a discussion, and as a woman you will say something and nobody will notice, and then 10 minutes later, a man will make the point that you made, and everybody will say, rah, 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 yes, that's a good point. And for the next hour, everybody will be talking about the wonderful point Kofi made, when in fact, Ifwa made it 10 minutes before Kofi. But everybody noticed when Kofi said it. You know?
You talked about institution, the willingness on the part of institutions to make the change that we want, to be able to introduce the right policies for us to begin to be seen more, offering more, and contributing to global development, I would call it, not Ghana or any other country, but women all over the world. Would you say you are impressed currently with the representation of women in the Foreign Service?
Actually, yes, I would. It's not enough, we're not at par, but especially compared to other places, Ghana is pretty good. And also, although the numbers that make it are smaller than we would expect, they were earlier. That is to say, we've had women diplomats from the start of our foreign service, and we've had women ambassadors quite early. Ghana has presidents of all parties have been very good at using the presidential privilege of, appointing, because as you know, our diplomatic service, some of us, some are career and some are politically appointed. And our presidents of all stripes are good at selecting women for the political appointments. But the civil service has also been quite good at identifying women, encouraging them. It took a little bit of time. For example, when we talk about structures, right, what is hard is how do you adjust a civil service that is designed, basically, it's an invisible thing, but it's basically designed for a man with a wife, and how do you adjust that for a woman with no husband or women with children whose spouse is somewhere else? Yes. Most male ambassadors with wives, their wives travel with them. Most women ambassadors with husbands, their husbands stay doing whatever it is they're doing and visit them on holiday. And, how do you deal with those kinds of structures? My friends in the service at the moment who have husbands with them, they are men who can work with IT, for example. They're in IT or have organized their businesses so that they can work on their computers and it doesn't matter the hour, then they can travel with the wife. But men in more traditional things, a number of the women I know in the Foreign Service, most of the men I know in the Foreign Service have their wives with them. Most of the women I know in the Foreign Service do not.
With them.
That's the kind of thing that's structural. I remember when we were trained, we had a very funny conversation because the Ghana Civil Service permits you to take 2 domestic staff with you. And they're on the books as your cook and your butler.
Your butler.
Yes. So we had a very funny conversation, those of us who are women, as to how we wanted a personal assistant, whatever, but not a butler. And we were told we could call them whatever they wanted, they would remain on the books as the cook and the butler. But that use of that word, it may be a service, people behave differently today, but the use of that word lets you know the origins and the structure and the kind of service that it was considered a man should be supported by. But the man with the butler also had his wife to do the entertaining, to manage the household and etc. The butler was looking after him. The wife was looking after the household. If you are a woman ambassador, who takes care of, who does what the wife does?
Okay, so I told you that today's episode is going to be a very interesting one, and I think it has started on a very good note. Like I said, my guest is Her Excellency Abena Pokua Adompim Busia, Ghana's ambassador, extraordinary and plenipotentiary to the Republic of Brazil. So we'll be talking about everything. We started from women issues, and we are talking about the representation of women in the foreign service. And at this point, I would like to take a break. When I come back, we will talk about how important it is when it comes to the role ambassadors play in the development of our country. We'll be back right after this break.
We are the only one doing. Uracare is the only
facility
one
here.
facility doing the cardiac MRIs and spectroscopy like studies only in West Africa.
So we have basically all the medications we need for our patients, from cardiology, all the specialists, cardiology, gastroenterology, fertility. We have everything here. Radiology, we have all the medicines here. So that's why I said this is where the magic is.
Yes.
Uracare is more like a one-stop shop. So if you come in, for most hospitals, you know that if you see a patient and the patient needs maybe an MRI or a CT scan, they would have to send the patient outside and do it. Because usually when I go out, I see a lot of ambulances back from other hospitals. But we don't experience that. We are fortunate that we are able to get all our patients in-house, do all the investigations that we do, whether laboratory, radiological, whether it's an echo, we do everything. If you need to be sent to cath lab, we do everything there.
Back. The show is Diplomatic Affairs, and we are coming to you live from the studios of Pan-African Television. My name is Harriet. My guest is Ghana's ambassador to the Republic of Brazil, Her Excellency Abena Pokua Adompim Busia. And of course, we've been talking about almost everything. She is a gender activist. She's very much interested in women issues. She's also a poet, and she's a writer. She's an author. She is, the embodiment of leadership. And for that, there is so much that we will be delving into on today's episode. Now, let's talk about, before we went on that short break, I was talking about how crucial it is when it comes to the role diplomats or ambassadors play in nation building. The president, I have had the opportunity to be at the presidency a couple of times for the commissioning of ambassadors. And oftentimes, one particular line that he doesn't miss when he talks about why you have been appointed to go and represent the good people of Ghana is to make sure that you project Ghana, sell Ghana, look out for opportunities, and create opportunities for the people of Ghana and other countries. How important is your role to nation building?
I think it's crucially important. Let me begin by saying I also think it is an incredible and awesome honor. Not that many people get chosen to be an ambassador. And for me especially, I spent 40 years in the academy. So it was not what I was expecting to do at the end of my professional career. So I'm incredibly honored. And it's not a small thing, because strictly speaking, in terms of what the the role is Ambassador, I love the word, extraordinary and plenipotentiary.
That's a big title.
Yes, it's a very big title. And it really means you know, when you go to a country to present your letters of credence, one of the few things these days where you actually still require an actual piece of paper, a beautiful piece of paper, usually parchment, beautifully designed and with the president's actual signature. What the letter says in so many words is, "Dear Mr. President, I'm your brother president telling you, you must give credence," that's why they call your credentials, "you must give credence to what this person says because they are speaking and acting on my behalf." That's the point of the ceremony. And so it's like you have to bear in mind all the time what you do and what you say. The community you're in is looking at you and thinking, okay, this is what Ghana means. This is what Ghana represents. This is what Ghana says. That is extremely important. And I think it's an extremely important thing to bear in mind, which is why we care how diplomats behave, you know. It's a cliche that in life all kinds of advantages, privileges also come with responsibilities. And the more awesome, the more spectacular the privilege, usually the more awesome the responsibility. And I think that remains true. So, why are we there? We are there for a range of reasons. Of course, one of the biggest ones is trade. You know, everybody needs money. How do countries make money? They sell to other places or support other places, give services to other places and so on. And how do those places know about you? Somebody needs to go ahead and say. For example, one of the things that has happened while I have been ambassador in Brazil is I'm also High Commissioner to Guyana. I say High Commissioner, the Guyanese are very particular that I'm not their ambassador, I'm their High Commissioner, because it's the only one of the 12 countries that is a member of the Commonwealth. So I'm ambassador to 11 countries and High Commissioner to one. But, for example, in the last few years, Guyana, closely followed by Suriname, have become oil producers. They have discovered arguably one of the largest oil fields in the country. Now, they recognized Ghana as an oil producing country. They also appreciated that we were fairly new. And basically Guyana came to Ghana and said, okay, what did you learn from the old people who've been digging oil for forever? How can you help us not make the same mistakes?
So exchange of knowledge in that area.
Yes. And so the fact is, and this is publicly recognized, that it is our experts in the gas and oil industry, in the Petroleum Commission, who have been in Guyana, I think for over a year, 18 months, something like that, helping them create and construct their national laws, their national instruments, sharing with them what we've learned, what mistakes we made, what things that should be changed, what kind of protections you need to set up your national instruments to protect your assets for the use of the country and the community who are bearing the burden of the work, you know. So that is a very important aspect of the knowledge sharing that's taken. And that's the kind of thing an ambassador can effect. An ambassador can knock on the doors and say, hey, this is where you are. Have you considered Ghana? And make sure that Ghana gets considered.
Right, that's part of the responsibility.
Yes, yes. And so you've got no guarantee. Ghana wasn't, I'm sure, the only person that knocked on the door and said, hey, we know oil. But you open the doors, you help make the negotiations possible, the negotiations are usually out of your hands. You know, at that point, they're with the experts in the two countries. But your responsibility is to knock on the door, to say, hey, to say, would you be interested, to say, so-and-so wants to meet you, or so-and-so comes knocking on your door to say, we want to talk about this. You say yes, and you consult, and you have the knowledge at your fingertips and can direct people in the right place.
Right, that's just one of the many things that diplomats or ambassadors or high commissioners do. There is also the perception that ambassadors, high commissioners or diplomats are all about receptions, cocktailing every now and then. How important is that to your job?
It's actually very important. I mean, I laugh because it's also a little bit of a cliche. I mean, we're all used to the James Bond scene, as it were, with all the ambassadors sipping champagne and seeming to do nothing else but dine and sip champagne at receptions. That is not true. That is a misconception of the time and the nature of the work, but it's not a totally false conception. You do spend a lot of time at receptions.
There is some iota of truth in there.
Pardon?
There's some iota of truth in there.
Yes,
right.
But there's a reason. You see, because that's where you get to meet people. First of all, there's something reciprocal about it. For instance, March, we celebrate Independence Day every year. People want to celebrate with us. If you invite somebody to your party and they don't come, it's a little hurtful. So I am sitting there in Brazil and I'm told by Ghana, you can have a party this year, and I invite, you know, the ambassadors of the countries I represent, and they don't bother to show, or I invite the other African ambassadors and they don't bother to show. That's very hurtful. They won't do that. They will show up. But I will also go to their national day, you know. And for example, in Brazil, there are 32 African nations. We're the largest single bloc. So if I'm going to go to every one, right there, that's 30 parties.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But it's not only those.
But the social networking is very important.
The social network is crucially important. That's where you will chance upon. I mean, I remember at one of my first receptions is where I met the person who chairs the Brazilian cocoa marketing board. Okay, they grow cocoa. They have an association. Well, you know, this is an important person for me to know. And I needed to look for him, but I didn't have to go find him because I walked into a reception and he knew enough about Ghana to recognize the kente and came to me and said, you must be the new representative of Ghana because I've been to Ghana. This is my name, here is my card. Please, let's sit and talk. And so when the next day my secretary called, he remembered, this is the woman in the kente to whom I gave my card. Now, it would have taken longer had I not walked into that reception and him not known who I was and come and approached me. So those kinds of moments, they break the ice. They make the entree easier than an anonymous person saying so-and-so wants to come and see you, you know. It's like when you want to meet somebody. It's always much easier if you can say, look, I'm a friend of so-and-so.
Right.
You know.
I get it. Now we get it. Well, the cocktailing is part of the job, so now you know. Now, Your Excellency, let's go into trade and investment. These are very vital when it comes to national economic growth, you know, and development of every country. What are the areas in terms of economic relations between Ghana and Brazil?
Well, for me, while I have been there, there are a couple of really clear ones, you know, the oil and gas and agriculture. I think I have spent more time with our Minister of Agriculture and the agricultural people in Brazil than any of the other ministers. And now, you know, education. So for me, there are certain areas that ebb and flow, as it were, but agriculture is very important. First of all, we're an agricultural nation. I mean, our wealth has for the last 100 years been cocoa. You know, oil and gas is very important, but it's a Johnny-come-lately. And the thing about Brazil that makes Brazil important, especially to the ECOWAS countries, is that most of the world's leading agricultural countries are temperate climate countries. Brazil is tropical. Brazil is tropical. The terrain is, I mean, there are times when I'm wandering in parts of Brazil, and I could be in the Ashanti region.
Right.
The terrain, and therefore the way, how things grow, the weather patterns, all those kinds of things. Why that matters is that Brazil has spent the last 60 years, and this, regardless of who's in power, you know, soldiers, civilians, what have you, they've had a single focus in terms of developing their agriculture. And this has gone, their research is awesome. And they research everything from seeds, types of seeds, growth of seeds. They research planting, how to maximize planting seasons, how do you intergrow crops so that they can benefit from each other, and etc., etc., etc. They've done a lot of research. They've done a lot of research. For example, they have what they call the Cerrado, which is similar to our savanna. They've done a lot of research on greening the savanna. And so the things we do, they have decades head start. Even the farm instruments, you know. They've done research on the soil and what kind of instruments they make and so on. So that when we have a program like Planting for Food and Jobs, there are people there who understand what we're talking about and who can come and share best practices and work with our farmers and help create the cooperatives and so on to show the latest things that they have, and also take things back. You know, we shouldn't underestimate the fact that Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire, between them, produce the majority of the world's cocoa through basically very small farms. You know, we don't have the large, huge. So our small farmers know something, right? And they have a knowledge and expertise. And I didn't know this before I went, but I learned in Brazil that the thing that makes Ghana special is that our cocoa is a niche market. The specialty chocolate people like our cocoa because of the way it's grown and handpicked and harvested and so on. So we have a very large and persistent and demanding specialty market for specialty chocolate, you know.
Right. I want us to talk about the positive trade balance when it comes to Brazil. Is this, looking at, I want to know if it's a trade between the two countries is a win-win situation
not
for
at
us.
the moment.
Not at the moment, right?
There's a major imbalance.
There is a major imbalance.
Yeah.
What do you think is or are? What are the challenges here?
The challenges are for us to actually do what the government is now doing, and that is to add value to our products here, and then to get other countries to buy our finished products rather than our raw products. Not only Ghana, but the whole of Africa has been feeding the rest of the world its raw products and then buying back finished products. And our struggle to add value is the right one, but it's not easy. It's not easy to establish the systems and to, you know, produce the factories, train the people and all the rest of it. And then you have to educate a market, right? It's not the same, but if you think about it, even at home, domestically, you get used to, say you use canned milk. You know, some people use carnations and some people use Nestle's. And it'll be a royal fight to get them to change from one to the other. So suddenly, forget carnations and Nestle's, suddenly, I don't know what we would call our brand, but you know, suddenly you now get a newcomer on the block, and you need to penetrate that market and say, we have canned milk, or we have chocolate, or, you know, I have a particular investment in getting Brazil to eat our chocolate.
Right.
Because they buy so much cocoa from us. More than 90% of what Brazil buys from us is our cocoa and cocoa products. And so I tell them, one of the things I do, I take as gifts. I get beautifully boxed, you know, with the compliments on, and I take them and I say, you need to eat our chocolate.
And they love it, I'm sure.
And they love it. And they love it. But then, if I get them to love our chocolate, then what follows? How do they get it into the, how then do we, what are the processes to create a market that can sustain our chocolate makers importing? What are the regulations? What are the taxes? Is it a free market? How do you do it? So you have to cultivate the taste. Let me tell you something. I was very shocked. I spent, you know, decades in the United States. And in the United States, Hershey's chocolate is very popular.
Right.
I don't like it. I love Cadbury's and the British brands we grew up with, right? I don't like Hershey's. And I was talking, I guess I shouldn't say that, right? But I was actually talking to somebody in marketing, in chocolate marketing in the States. And I asked, why? What is it? And that's when I got an education on the taste, the different kinds of beans and the different quality of beans. It's a bit like coffee and tea. There are different kinds. And the Americans have this particular taste. I don't know which came first, Hershey's or the taste, but Americans love that particular taste. Whereas those of us, the Brazilians, their chocolate is more like, you know, the Cadbury's kind of taste that we have. But they're different beans, different processes, etc. So it's, you know, it's not just chocolate. There's a whole science and an aesthetics and everything behind it. But, you know, that day, I mean, this was a long time ago now, but here I am proudly saying, oh yeah, we grow cocoa in Ghana. I was only about 30 at the time, 35, 30, but I never thought about what is the impact of the different kinds of cocoa beans. Well, they bring different tastes. The way different tea leaves bring taste, and there's a difference between Arabica coffee and other coffees. Well, cocoa beans are the same. And cocoa farmers know it, and cocoa manufacturers know it. So how do you judge what is the taste of a nation and gear the product to that? All those things are complicated. And then there are laws that surprise you. You know, another story. I have some, in the United States they have the candy, which we call Smarties. They call them M&Ms. And they're slightly different. First of all, because of the chocolate and because of the colors of the... Well, I had a friend one day who was importing a whole bunch of Smarties for their friends, right? They were stopped at the border and they weren't going to be allowed to import the Smarties. And the only reason they let them import the Smarties was if they removed the Smarties of a particular color. Why? Because of the dye and the thing that colored. So different countries have different regulations about the dyes of the sweets. So if you're entering a country, which is why manufacturers sometimes manufacture different chocolate boxes for the different countries, because they know the regulations. But if you're just an ordinary person and you have more than a tube of Smarties, but you're actually bringing in like 20 tubes of Smarties, you won't be stopped. And if you're entering the United States, they'll make you remove, say, the yellow ones. But if you're entering Germany, they'll make you remove the red ones or something because of what they contain. So there are those kinds of complexities that you don't think about.
Right.
No.
I believe that under your leadership as Ghana's representative to Brazil, you are looking at ways to curtail some of these challenges so we can have that kind of, you know, breakthrough to the Brazilian market, right?
Yes.
Okay.
But I'm not the only one.
But right, exactly. It's a
Yes,
teamwork,
yes,
I
yes,
understand
yes,
totally. But
yes.
just because you are there and so
Yes.
you are doing what you can in your own small corner. And
Yes.
so we hope that at least at the end of the day we can begin to get more visibility in the Brazilian
Absolutely.
market. Now, do you think we have less than 10 minutes to wrap up?
Oh.
Very unfortunate. Do you think the flight patterns could be a challenge, a major challenge as well?
They are the major challenge as far as I'm concerned, and as far as the other Africans are concerned. And as a group of African ambassadors, we have all been collectively trying to do something about this. I will tell you my favorite story, a couple of favorite stories. In my second year, in 2019, Otumfuo was invited as a guest of honor to the Independence Day of Suriname in November. And Paramaribo is even further north up the coast than Rio and Sao Paulo, right? He came, we had a wonderful time. On the day that he was leaving, and I must say that the airport, the international airport, is an hour away from the town. So we had breakfast, we drove an hour, saw him off, and then we had to wait diligently for his plane to leave the airspace. Then we drove an hour back. And then I was with my deputy, we had a couple of meetings at ministries, we had lunch, we went to another meeting at a ministry. We were just walking back into our hotel to sit and debrief about how we'd done when my phone goes. It's Otumfuo's private secretary. Thank you very much, Ambassador. We had a wonderful time. We've reached Kumasi.
They've reached Kumasi in the space of how many hours?
They had done it in 6.5. All we had done
Well, they
was
flew privately.
They flew privately in a direct jet.
So you can
That's the
imagine
point.
if we have
A direct flight. Look, Recife to Dakar is actually only a 3-hour journey. If we had a direct flight between Accra and Brazil, it could be done in 6.5 hours. But to go to Accra today, the last time I left and flew from Accra, Europe was closed, so I had to go Accra, Dubai. One time I went Dubai, the other time I went Doha, Doha's Sao Paulo, Sao Paulo, Brasilia. 23-hour journey. It's a 6-hour flight.
Okay, so before we started this conversation, you already mentioned this particular issue. For me, it's a serious issue that I think needs to be addressed. It affects almost everything.
We're trying to persuade businessmen to do work. You can't get the direct flight. We need to work on our flight routes.
Have the conversations started.
Oh
with
yes,
your
the conversations
colleague
have started.
ambassadors from other countries.
Oh yeah, look. Ghana has air service agreements with almost all the countries on the coast. It's getting the business people to sit down and say, we can do this, we're prepared to take this risk, or getting whoever underwrites such thing. No, the work has been done in terms of getting the agreements and the understanding that it is necessary. We've done our work. You know?
Okay. Now, so let me just let's see. Right.
It's a very big issue.
It's a very big issue, but I believe that we can make something happen.
Yes.
We can tackle this
major
so. issue. Hopefully, I hope by the time you leave office, I mean, you are done serving Ghana in Brazil. We should make some.
I'm telling everybody who listen, I'll be on the major journey.
Yes.
I will be on the major, and they've got a lot of choices. My mission is in charge of all 12 countries. So just tell us which capital city to go to, and we will fly from it.
So I was going a follow-up question. I was going to ask, which I'm still going to, is the Embassy of Ghana in Brasilia is the only mission in South America.
Yes.
Is that also an issue?
Yes,
In
but
terms
I
of
would say yes and no.
Markets,
Yes,
surveillance, and getting people to, build the interest.
Yes, it is. It's a tough job to work from Brasilia and get everybody around the continent to know you. But at the same time, you have to understand that running missions is costly. And every government needs to weigh. What are you going to weigh? The number of countries or the number of Ghanaians that you need to serve? Number of countries, Brazil is the largest mission. Number of Ghanaians to be served in the countries, we must be one of the smallest. There are probably as many Ghanaians in every single, combined in all the countries in South America, as in one small town in England. You know, so governments need always to make certain judicial kind of decisions. And there are interim steps that you could take, like substantive consuls or honorary consuls. We work through honorary consuls. If I have a frustration, I wish that our honorary consuls could be approved a little bit faster than they are. But if I'm honest and I had to say, if I were in government and I had to open a second mission in South America or a second mission in that part of the world, it would be a relief to my mission if it was on continental South America. But I'm sure the ambassador in DC could make a great case for saying, you know what, why don't you divest me of Mexico, you know, or something, you know, because at the moment, the ambassador in Washington is also in charge of Mexico. We have a much bigger Ghanaian population in Mexico than we do in Brazil. So there are different kinds of decisions that need to be made, and you make the best of it. If you ask me what case I want to make,
what case
I want another office.
We have the appropriate officers watching. I do know that the president is watching. If not watching, he definitely will hear this message. And of course, our honorable minister as well. Yes. I know that she is one of the people who watches this platform, so that's okay. Yeah. Final words. Okay. We are wrapping up.
All right. Final word. I think I would like to thank Ghana for trusting me. I have a whole list of things I think we should do. I think if there's one word of advice I'd want to give, I think we should work more on the question of language. I think perhaps that Brazil is Portuguese speaking and the other countries are Spanish speaking is one of the big kind of that makes it hard. I mean, even simple things like advertising, everything needs to be translated. But the final word is thank you, I guess. I will continue to do my best, and I will continue to look for places for Ghana goods, and I wish we'd had more time to talk about the cultural aspect.
We will do it again. We'll do it again.
Because
we will do it again.
You know, that I think is the thing we haven't spoken about.
Right.
That I think is the
and
most
with your
important.
background as well.
Yeah.
So we will do it again. I have tons of messages pouring in from my personal WhatsApp and then also our social media platforms. But somebody wants me to ask if your office is accessible.
Oh yes, we're very accessible. How can I just go on our website. Go on our website.
So the website works. It works. So
works.
Please get in touch with her. I know her doors are always open. Social media, they are very active on social media as well. Now, Her Excellency, Ambassador, Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary, Abena Pokua Adompim Busia. Thank you so much for honoring our invitation on Diplomatic Affairs. I promise you we will do it again whenever. I'm still tailing you, so whenever you are in town, I will use the opportunity to have you. Thank you so much for the insightful conversation. I really appreciate it, and I know our guests, our audience also, you know, they appreciate the fact that you took some time out of your busy schedule to be here today. Thank you so much for watching as always, and of course it's been very insightful, and you can watch the show, tell your friends to watch it again on our YouTube and our Facebook pages. It's always nice to come your way with Diplomatic Affairs. My name is Harriet Nartey, and of course I look forward to seeing you same time next week. Enjoy your weekend.